This is a pretty exciting experience. My name is Melissa Hui, and I'm a Wayne State University student. And tonight, we're going to study how, as Brandon already said, how your genetic code is going to affect, how food affects your genetic code. So modern medicine is actually 150 years old, and that's not really modern. But the 21st century is actually giving us the tools to understand how our genetic code is actually caused by subtle interactions with DNA and genes. And so you'll notice here that food actually accounts for 76 million deaths in the past 20th century. And a lot of these affected obesity, heart disease, cancer, and so we're going to go right into it, and we're going to look at epigenetics, nutrigenomics, and food therapy. And we're going to study the science underneath how the food that you eat actually affects your code. Wait for that. All right, so let's start off. Epigenetics is actually the study of how your phenotype or your actually physical appearance is changed by environmental factors. And so what we're looking at here, that big green blob, is actually a histone, and it's a protein that encodes and controls gene expression. And what it does is it actually wraps around the DNA and it manipulates the gene sequence and changes it so the genetic markers are actually what it modifies. And these genetic markers can be taken and passed on to your offspring. A famous study that was actually done was done in northern Sweden, and it was the Overcalic studies. And they studied years for generational studies for the county, and they studied years of crop failure and crop abundance. And what they found was that the grandsons of Overcalic's individuals actually lived 6 years less. That's 2 generations later. So you can see how it trended down. But when they accounted for socioeconomic variables, it was actually 32 years less. Likewise, an epigenetic study in smoking found that sons of men who started before age 11 actually had sons who had high BMIs before the age of 9. So diet and epigenetics actually do have a really strong correlation. These are the goody mice. And you'll notice that there's a difference between the brown coat and the yellow coat. Well, the brown coat actually came from pregnant mothers who were fed diets rich in B12, folic acid, and genistein, which is found in soy. And they produced slim, healthy brown mice. But the one on the, let's think about this, on the right is actually a mother who did not have those nutrients, and her offspring were susceptible to diabetes and cancer. So what does this mean for us? We're each biochemically different. So could it mean that our genetic profiles, if we understand it, we could eat certain foods to help us optimize and enhance our health? So a 2005 study done by, that was featured in National Geographic looked at blue zones. And blue zones are areas where people live to be 100 at 10 times the rate here in the US. And what they found was that they actually had diets that were really unique. And these can be mimicked by anybody in the world. In fact, we actually have a population in Loma Linda. And they found that they suffered less heart disease and cancer rates, and they also lived 7 to 10 years longer. So food is not exactly just a preventative thing, but you can actually use it as a cure. And this patient was a physicist who was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer. She was given 3 months to live, but after following the following macrobiotic diet, she actually was cancer-free within 2 months. This patient also was a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She was nearing stage 4. And she actually used food constituents to strengthen her body and also became cancer-free from a very similar diet. But cancer isn't the only thing that macrobiotics and other food therapies are actually assisting in. Patients with hypoglycemia, allergies, and Crohn disease utilize diets rich in brown rice, soy, leafy greens to be able to prevent and treat. So what does the future of food as a medicine hold for us? Well, we have portable DNA scanners, which is a technology that allows instant DNA testing. You also notice getaway genes. These are genetically modified food genes that are actually not supposed to be in the food supply, but they're there, so that's a threat. DNA vaccines, food can become a medium for that. Custom DNA diets, where your DNA genetic profile can be actually assessed and a diet can be recommended for you. So that's my talk, and so I guess the question now is, can food alter your genetic profile? And I'd like to say in the words of Hippocrates, let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food.